Hospitals in Ontario have just frozen their orders. Australia has flatly rejected demands from the United States. And inside the White House, a plan is being prepared to impose a staggering 200% tariff on insulin. This is no longer just about trade, it's about medicine, and the fallout is just beginning. The microphones were still hot when the threat was made public. A 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals. It wasn't a bluff. On July 8th, an ultimatum was delivered from the Roosevelt Room: either bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to US soil within 18 months, or face crippling import taxes on critical drugs like blood plasma, insulin, and antibiotics. If you stick with us until the end of this video, you will have a crystal clear understanding of what this escalating global conflict means, not just for international politics, but for your own access to essential medicines. We'll break down why allies are becoming adversaries, and how a tariff could lead to a hospital logistics crisis. If you haven't already, now is the time to subscribe to our channel and like this video to stay informed on these critical updates. The justification for this drastic policy was framed as a matter of national security. The method? Maximum leverage. However, the backlash was immediate, and it came not from adversaries, but from the closest of allies. Australia, a nation that exported over $2 billion, 0 cents in pharmaceutical goods to the US last year, responded with defiance. Treasurer Jim Chalmers called the threat deeply concerning, but stated unequivocally that Australia would not alter its Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, or PBS. The PBS ensures affordable medicine for its citizens by mandating price negotiations. Chalmers made it clear that changing this system would be trading sovereignty for market access. Here we see the first major fracture, a policy of economic nationalism directly challenging the foundations of an allied nation's healthcare system. Canada chose a different path. Instead of public condemnation, Ottawa began quiet preparations for insulation. Over 80% of Canada's raw pharmaceutical materials pass through multiple countries, often re-entering the US before reaching Canadian hospitals. A 200% tariff wouldn't just be a tax, it would shatter this intricate supply loop. While Canada represents less than 5% of generic medicines in the US, the impact of tariffs will be devastating for smaller Canadian producers who rely on cross-border economies of scale. A production line in Ontario, kept open by a minor US export contract, could be forced to close, causing shortages in Canada's domestic market. Ottawa's strategy isn't to fight headlines with headlines, but to lobby from the inside, with data requesting exemptions on humanitarian grounds. This isn't just about North America. On July 7th, formal notices of a flat 25% tariff on all imports were sent to Japan and South Korea, key strategic allies needed to counterbalance China. The markets reacted instantly with uncertainty. As one Goldman Sachs memo warned, policy volatility has now become the primary geopolitical risk to equities. The White House has confirmed it lacks the resources to negotiate individual exemptions, opting instead to group over 100 trading partners into tiers facing tariffs between 10% and 70%. The goal was uniformity, the outcome may be chaos. This situation is forcing a redefinition of what it means to be a trading partner. Shared values no longer guarantee economic exceptions. The new rule isn't alignment, it's obedience. While many nations scrambled, Canada's government, under the guidance of former Bank of England head Mark Carney, remained silent. This wasn't confusion, it was strategy. While one leader plays with deadlines, the other plays the long game of institutional resilience and liquidity. Carney is not trying to out-talk the White House, he's trying to outlast it. Meanwhile, other global players are maneuvering. India's Cipla is increasing exports to South America. The EU is accelerating drug procurement talks with Indonesia, and Singapore is investing hundreds of millions into alternative supply chain startups, betting that the US will eventually price itself into a corner. The most alarming contradiction in this strategy is that the US currently lacks the manufacturing base to replace what it's threatening to tax. Over 90% of the active ingredients for its pharmaceuticals come from China and India. So who benefits from this? The answer isn't clear, but the damage is already measurable in economic forecasts, even before the tariffs are enforced. If generic drugs, which make up over 90% of prescriptions filled in the US, disappear from shelves, patients won't get cheaper alternatives. They'll get none. If the US imposes these tariffs and its allies don't blink, what happens when the drugs stop arriving? That's not a headline, that's a hospital logistics crisis. This is no longer about trade. It's about the weaponization of supply chains once considered sacred. Pharmaceuticals aren't like steel, they expire. The very countries the US called its healthcare innovation partners are now on notice. The logic of alliances built on trust has been inverted. Trust isn't being lost, it's being priced. The next drug shortage may not come from a supply issue, but from a tariff code. Thank you for watching. The situation is evolving rapidly, and we will continue to provide in-depth analysis. Please like, subscribe, and check out another one of our videos on your screen now.